Hello, welcome to Hermit's Corner. My name's Stefan. Today I will be sharing, I suppose I'll call it my burning bush story. The only reason I call it that is because when it started, that's immediately the thing that came to my mind. Um, it was the most uh, life changing event of my life. And I guess some backstory on it is I grew up Christian. My parents, we were missionaries in Germany, or they were, and I was a kid back then. So I kind of grew up there for a few years, went uh, back in between stateside and Germany uh, through my childhood. And so, I mean, they really thumped the Bible down our throats. Sorry, I have like an alley there. I put a band aid on it because I don't want it to distract. But anyway, yeah, so I felt like a weirdo growing up. I saw entities and I figured out others didn't see them, like black voids and I guess what they'd call angels and demons, till I was like 16. I really didn't want that sight and I asked God to take it because it was really vexing. And He did. And I remember growing up thinking I was just a weirdo. Anyway, sorry for smoking here, but a little easier. That stress. Yeah, anyways, there was one nice counselor, though, at the school that they apparently had found my journal. I guess women have, what are they called? Diaries. Guys have journals because it's more masculine. Something like that. Well, anyway, they found my journal and they thought maybe I have like, uh, some issues, like they were afraid I would commit self harm. I was like, no, I don't want to commit self harm. I just want it to stop. So this one lady I figured out later that was INFJ, she said, yeah, there's some people that are really special and you have some gifts and don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. So that was like the nicest thing somebody said to me. Anyway, but going forward, so I was always looking for religion or basically God, real God, you know. And I had my mind totally blown with Christianity in that I heard like Jewish rabbis argue Christians, and there was a lot I didn't understand about the text that are misinterpreted. So I started studying Hebrew and studying some of the the texts and the original versions of what things are said. Now, I mean, mind you, what we could base it on is just what has been found as far as like oldest documents. I think the Dead Sea Scrolls is up there with that. Well, anyway, um, I started I started delving into Hebrew, and um, the reason I'd picked Hebrew is because I'd had visions of Hebrew before, um, on stones and blue light, and I just thought I needed to study it, and so I was making like a aleph bet reel. Aleph bet's like the alphabet in Hebrew, and all the letters are consonants. There is no vowels in the Hebrew letters, the pictographs. And then the pictographs also were more like a layered meaning. like it was a symbol instead of just a letter. This means exactly this, like in English or, some of the languages nowadays. So it really kind of stretches your mind. Then you also read it from right to left, so you're right brain dominant when you're reading it. So there's a bunch of interesting little things I found out about that. But when I started studying it, the Tetragrammaton, or Yud He Vav He, uh, I got totally enveloped in just studying that name of God. And what's interesting is all four of those letters are silent. So if you think about God being in the silence, if you want to find God, just go completely learn how to silence your mind, you know, and, it'll be easier to lock onto God, I think, is in the silence. And so there's something to that. Well, one day I was working in Seattle. I had a server job, and I had been meditating on that name, and I started noticing patterns, and they have a gematrial number system to it too. So I think it was like 10 with the yod, which is almost similar to like 10 emanations of light, or the Sephirot, like in Kabbalah. That's where yod is derived from. And you had He, which is 5, Vav, which is 6, and then another He that's 5. So it's kind of like split the 10, divided by 2, and then out sprouts a Vav, like a 6. And so it follows like the golden mean pattern. The amino acids in the 4 letters on your DNA helix also match the gematria of that name, which is pretty fascinating. And then all the psychology could be based around that. And you could argue, basically, if you study God, it's like the study of everything. And then how all that syncs together is what I've been really, so I've studied so many different things, fields, all that kind of stuff. And they all started syncing together once I started understanding, that text and studying that name of God. And I was kind of leaning on whether or not I was going to convert to Judaism or not. They said I'd be fine being a Noahide. They're supposed to dissuade you. But I got a blessing from the rabbi. He blessed me because he was asking me, well, what is God? What is Hashem? I said, well, God runs through everything, because I was trying to find the most accurate, succinct statement I could make of God, because he's not finite, so it's kind of a difficult way to put it, but he screamed out, Baruch Hashem, like he was blessing me with his hands and stuff. I was like, wow, this is great. And that was after this download day. It was nuts. It was crazy. And I was shining silverware in a high-end restaurant. I was just like one position below the servers. They were making like 6 figures. I was trying to gun for that. And the one GM in that store, I won't name her name. I think she had a thing for me. She was like probably a decade older than me. And yeah, anyway, she was, yeah, I'm not doing that crap again. Well, anyway, I was thinking on the name of God, and I was just meditating on it. And I've never done meditation or anything. I didn't know what it was. I just did it, you know. And I heard two, I guess, angels or beings above in the ceiling. Like they could be on top of the buildings, but looking through. And they were talking. They were kind of arguing amongst themselves. And I caught the tail end of it's like it was a debate. I didn't know angels could debate each other. It was pretty odd. I don't know what one could picture of angels or whatever, but I heard them. It was kind of like an not audible, but it was like in my mind's eye. It sounds strange. And there is still this quasi element of like, is this real or not? You know what I mean? Like not audibly hearing them, and I know other people aren't hearing them, but I can tell they're talking to each other, and this is what they were saying. You know, they were saying he's not ready. Uh, the other one was like, yeah, he's ready. He hears us right now, and then it makes you think you're going crazy in your mind, like my schizo or something, like hearing stuff. I don't hear it like audibly, like, and so they were saying that, and then um, one of them said, well, let's test it. Stefan, wave if you hear us. I was like, well, this is a really silly game, and this is where mental starts. So I waved just to see what would happen. And the other one said, see, I told you he heard us. He was listening. And so right then, I started feeling electricity in my back. And it was like a water electricity, like a water current electricity. And it was like there was two holes in my back, at the back of my back, that started spurting. Like it felt like something was pushing through on the back side of my heart, but on my back. And then I could feel these stems coming out of my back. And that's where the moment where I thought this was like a burning bush moment, you know, like when Moses came on that bush. And it was like I could feel it. I couldn't see anything of light or anything. I just felt this current just flowing steadily in, out, whatever, through those two stems coming out of my back. And things started to get weird. One, the telepathy went through the roof. Like, you don't hear people's thoughts like words. Most of them are like intentions or like knowing. Like just the stage right before they're thinking something through, you could sense that with people super high level, like easy. And it was terrifying. Honestly, it was really terrifying. And this people started acting strange around me, and I'm supposed to be like working, you know, and we're all supposed to be working. But for instance, one of the other guys I was working with came by and he gave me these gay eyes, like that. And I was looking at him like, is he queer or something? This is weird. I didn't know he was queer. He's kind of giving me a gay look. And then it immediately turned to anger, and then he like turned away like he got rejected. It was weird. It was like, okay, that guy's acting weird. And then when I was serving people out in the dining room, I was like pouring stuff, water and things for people. The people were like facing me, like, you know, usually they kind of do their own thing at the table, but they kind of faced me, so I kind of felt on the spot everywhere I went. And I went real quick to hide back into the kitchen, and this guy comes up to me and he says, dude, you're lighting up. Like, do you meditate a lot? And I'm like, no. And he says, well, you got like colors coming off you, like really a lot of colors. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, it's typical for people that meditate a lot. I was like, oh, that's good to know. And it just kept going on. And so uh, while it was happening, it felt like my head spinning. Like it's not. It's like spiritually drunk. If I could put words on it, it's not like you're drunk or inebriated and you don't know what you're doing. It's more like you're spinning. Like, whoa, this is a lot. Everything goes in circles in your head, and then all these stories started flooding in from like the old text, the old Bible stories, and I started seeing them in a different light. It was like they were soul paths with certain people that go through them, and it was like a remembrance tool for when we're further down the line. We go back to that old text to remember, like waypoints or something. It's really particularly odd, and I was flowing in it, and I really wanted to start talking about some of the profound things that were coming to me at that time. And I was getting ready to just start talking about it, and I noticed a crowd had formed around me, and they're all waiting for me to talk. I was like, "This is weird. Do they sense me back?" And and I remember in my mind like, "No, no, I'm at work. We got to work." And then they all kind of looked a little disappointed, and they shuffled away. And these are like, you know, like coworkers, strangers, like people I don't know. And then I was going across the line, and this one gal was like touching my back where the horn spurts were going out. I got really pissed because I don't like being touched. Um, I told her pretty firmly, "Do not touch me." And she was laughing like a succubi, like, like kind of weird. I was like, "Oh, that's good," creepy. I don't want people touching me. This is weird. And so it started to get weirder, and it felt like one of those weird superhero stories where you're just starting to learn of some powers, and then you're like trying certain things out. And when I went back through the kitchen, like it's a big, you know, hustle and bustle. And as I was approaching the kitchen line, everybody in the whole line, they all parted for me. And I was like, this is really weird. And so I walked down the lane and then out the two swinging doors. And then two guys behind me came out and then pushed them out. And then they, they had this gurgling noise in their lungs, like they were saying something. It was like bubbling out of their mouths. Like it wasn't them who were saying it. It was like somebody working them like a puppet, basically. And they called me Son of God. And I I only had the old concepts of religion that I grew up with, so it was like, this sounds really heretical. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to keep acting like nothing's happening here. And yeah, it got weird. Then it got to the point, it was like I wanted to go home. I wanted to get out of there, and I asked Annie, and I was asking if I could go home for the day. Um, and she agreed, finally. I kind of twisting their arm, but while I was talking to them, they couldn't even like look at me in the eyes. They were looking like around me, and their faces looked like they were lit up, but they weren't looking at light because I couldn't see light. I couldn't see what they were seeing, and so they're like looking all around my head, and it was really weird. And so it was like I was trying to engage them, and they were just like acting really strange. And so I thought, well, let me just get home. And um, ran on the bus. I was in Bellevue, where all the rich people are. You got like Bill Gates and all them. Bunch of really expensive properties out there, and they had like a Hermes store, all the designer crap along that shopping ring. And I got on the bus to go back to Seattle across the bridge from Bellevue. And I remember getting on the bus and I'm like, well, I'm just going to go in the back and I'm going to hide. And I'd noticed that some of the crowds like were kind of all watching me as I'm getting on the bus. And I'm just thinking, I just want to be invisible right now. And I went to the back of the bus and I sit down in the middle of the 5 seats. And then I look up and everybody on the bus was staring back at me, including the driver, which was behind a partition. They were kind of looking past it, and it was really weird. And I was like, wow, this is really strange. And I made a motion with my hand so that they could continue doing what they were doing, like, and they kind of snapped out of it and started going about their business. And we started driving along. I was sitting next to this black guy, and he looks at me and he says, boy, it's been a long time since we've had an angel around. This is really something. And he was looking around and just really wide-eyed. And I'm like, okay. And I started looking around. I said, oh, maybe there's an angel causing all this. So I'm starting to look around. But he was looking at me. And I was like, oh, he thinks I'm an angel or something. I said, that's strange. Because, like, I think anybody can do this. Like, get to this. And then, what are we, all angels or something? Maybe not. Maybe there's some demons. We know some bad people out there, but anyway, it was just weird. And so then I started to play with energy a little bit. I figured out I could raise or lower a frequency, and then everything with my sight would alter. It would get like to gray tones, blue on the low level, and then it would get to pixie color on the high level. And I said, this is something. And I didn't know what to make of it. Like, and then I thought, well, if telepathy works, like, can I have people move their vehicles? Because we were like all in gridlock traffic, and we were at a standstill for like, I don't know, 5 minutes, and I was kind of like, well, why aren't we moving yet? And so I intentioned for everybody to like get a move on, and the cars all beside me started rolling forward. Like it was almost in unison, like kind of staggered unison. And then I was like, what else can this do? This is really something. And so I was like, well, maybe all the cars can speed up and we get home quick. And so I started thinking on that. And the guy beside me was looking out the window and he was doing this, like